Today on The Joy of Editing, on this TK Friday episode, I'll be doing a full edit of an image I'm calling Seaside Sonata. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It's TK Friday and I love TK Fridays and I hope you do too. Today it's a full edit of this image that I'm entitling Seaside Sonata from New South Wales, Australia. I believe this is Spoon Bay. The image is by Tony Nicolaci, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Tony. Thanks for the use of this image, and as always, you can download the image and the PDF notes. I'll have Dropbox links for you in the description right below this video. If you don't see the links, you have to click on More or Show More. That opens up the description so you can get to the Dropbox links. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. All right, then let's dive into this full edit. I always start out in Lightroom. So this is what the image looks like out of camera. After I've made some adjustments, it now looks like this. So I've used a linear profile. Let's open up the basic tab here, and you can see here's my adjustments. Very basic adjustments. I click on auto, but first I start out with a linear profile for Tony's camera, which is a Canon EOS R6. And I do my typical remove chromatic aberrations. I check that on, as well as enable profile corrections. And as far as detail, no noise reduction. This is a really low ISO image of ISO 100, 33mm f14, a 5-second exposure. So we can see we're getting these nice soft waves here in the background. I'm sure Tony has used a tripod for this. As far as sharpening, I'm just using a small amount of sharpening, like 40, which is the default setting, I believe, for Lightroom. Did a little bit of masking on it, and that is basically it. And next I will send this into Photoshop, and I just right-click on the image and go to Edit In and Edit in Photoshop 2024. And when you get your image, it'll already be like this. It'll have the Lightroom adjustments on it already, and you'll be ready to roll. Before I go into Photoshop, I almost forgot to tell you, under Basic, I did have to adjust my white and black point so I don't get any clipping and shadows or highlights, because that's important, because I'm going to do all of my editing inside of Photoshop with the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. So I want to go in to Photoshop relatively flat and build my image up. And here we are inside of Photoshop, and I'm so excited to get this one going. I really enjoy this image of the sand and these rocks. We're going to bring out some nice contrast, some nice details. This is going to be a fun edit. Today I thought I'd go about this edit in a little different way. Rather than using like luminosity masks and zone masks, I'll be utilizing Blend If and the TK9 plugin for Photoshop using the Edit Blend If features. TK9 opens up, like a whole new world of editing possibilities, and I thought we'd explore more of the Edit Blend If today. As you know, in Photoshop, there's many ways of getting the same thing done, and TK9 opens up the doors for us here. I'll start out by doing balance and contrast on the foreground and the sky, but I will also make a foreground and a sky mask, and we'll save those in channels. I call this setting up for success. So let's do that first. And TK9 makes this easy for us. So hold your Command or Control key down and click on this button right here to select the sky. And when you do, you'll notice down here in channels, you have a channel saved called Sky, which is the mask for the sky. Now hold the Command or Control key down again, and now double click this button right here to select the sky. And when you do, it inverts that, and now we have a foreground saved here, and it's called foreground. So that's really cool. Now I'll start off with the foreground. So what we're going to do is come up and we're going to click this button right here, and this button gets us into Blend If. Now we can make masks out of Blend If, which is really cool. So I can send masks down to any layer and create them right here with Blend If. For instance, this is Lights 1, here's Lights 2, Lights 3. Of course, you can go to Darks 1, any of these darks values, and then you have zones here. if you just want the midtone zone, which is right in here. In my case, I always like to use midtones 3 just to protect my shadows and highlights from clipping. But what we're going to do here now, follow me close, hold your shift key down and click on the color grading tool, just like this. And when you do that, you put that blend diff that is just giving you midtones 3. Now, all we need to do is come to the mask calculator. Now, you can find it on the combo or the CX panel. My CX panel is opened up for actions. And what we're going to do is click on the mask calculator. And we want to use the foreground. So we're going to click on foreground. And we can either use X for intersect. It'll put it right into this mask. Or we could use this button right here to apply. Either of these buttons will work. So we'll click on the apply button. And now I have a foreground. But blend diff is protecting me that I can't clip shadows or highlights. So that's one of the ways I'm using blend diff today. Now for the foreground, I'll work on shadows and midtones. So I'll click on this shadow button, and what I'll do is drag this slider to the left to like right about here, -26. And what I think I'll do is just cool off those shadows just a little bit. So I'm just going to click right here. See my cursor? Wherever that point is, when you left click with your mouse, it'll drop that color grade down. So what I'm going to do is go right about here and just add a little bit of blue to the shadow areas. And now we're going to move over to midtone. So I'll click on the midtone button. And I just want to open up my midtone. So I'm going to drag this to the right over to like right about here. And what I want to do there is give them a little bit of warm color grading. So maybe like right about here. That might be too much, maybe right here. Just a little bit of warm color grading. In fact, I think over here. And I think that looks good. Yeah, that's it right there. So now we could take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. So that is the foreground. Okay, now let's move to the sky. So what we need to do right now, this color grading tool is in the way. Click the X, you'll get back to the multi-mask panel. Now, nothing changes here, so don't worry about that. Now we're going to do the same thing. Click this button to go into blend diff. Now this is where you can generate a mask for blend diff. Like this. You know, any one of these values. Now I want midtones 3 to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. But then you could output this to a curves adjustment layer, color grading tool, but it would apply that mask to the layer. But I don't want to use the mask. You have a choice here. You can use a mask, or you can just use the edit blend diff on the layer. And that's what happens when you hold your shift key down and click on any one of these buttons. It'll just apply the blend diff to the layer. So I'm holding the shift and clicking on the color grading tool button. And now I have a color grading tool with edit blend diff that's going to protect my shadows and highlights from clipping because it has a midtones 3 blend diff on it. So that's pretty neat, isn't it? So now what we're going to do is go to the mask calculator. And this time we want the sky. So click on the sky. And now we can either intersect it or apply it. Either button will do the same job. This time let's click intersect. It doesn't really matter. But you'll notice when I click intersect, there's the sky right there. And now we can make the adjustments. This time I'll work on midtones and highlights. I'll start out with midtones. So we'll click on the midtone button. And what I want to do is just darken up the midtones a little bit to right here, -15. Now I do want to give those a slight blue color grade. So I'm going to click. Let's try right here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good right there. Maybe down just a little bit. Not right there, right there. I think right there is good. So here's the before and here's the after. It just puts a little bit of a blue tint up in here, which I like. And next I'll go to highlights. So click on the highlight button and I want to just pull those highlights back a little bit. They're just a little bit too hot up in here. So what we'll do is drag this to the left to like right there, a -25. So here's my before and here's my after. And I'm just trying to get this scene balanced out. Now, when I look at the image and I look up in this area, this distant land area back here, and even the water, it more reflects what's happening in the sky. So what I thought I would do is on this mask right here, get myself a white brush. Right now, my opacity is at 20%. I'm going to type my 0 key to get to 100%. And now with a nice smaller soft edge brush at 0% hardness, what I'm going to do is I just want to add this area into the sky. See how it just darkens it down And with that nice soft edge brush, I'm not lifting my brush, right? I'm at 100%. I'm just going to paint over this entire area here. And then I'm going to come up over into the water. And again, it's a nice soft edge brush. And I just want this water area to blend in with the same adjustment that's in the sky. And it's simple, just that you can just paint this with a soft feathered edge brush and no problem whatsoever. So now let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. I think that matches better with the sky adjustment. If we click the before after button, we can see the image started out looking like this and now it looks like this. So we're already off to a really good start. And for me, that balance and contrast really helps me to understand what I need to do next, because my editing philosophy is more of a troubleshooting approach where I take a look at the image and I try to fix problems. And after I get all the problems fixed, I'm generally done with the edit, but I'll do some artistic things along the way if I think I want to add a little bit of extra something here or there. But let's continue. I need to get to the multi-mask panel. The color grading tool's in the way, so just click on the X. It goes out of the way. Nothing changes here. I'm going to go back to the Blend If button, so click on the Blend If button, and what I want to do is work on the shadow areas of the foreground, so I really want to darken up the shadows in the foreground area. So what we're going to do is find a darks mask that will help us. So here's darks 1, here's darks 2, darks 3, darks 4, and here's darks 5. And I think darks 5, you see all the lighter areas, they're going to get the adjustment. Everything in light will get the adjustment. Now what I need to do is output this, and I'm going to output it to a curves adjustment layer. So again, I'm going to hold my shift key because I don't want to output it as a mask. If I just click this right now, it would put that mask on the layer. But I'm holding my shift key down and clicking on the curves adjustment layer. And now I have a curves adjustment layer here. Now what I'm going to do is click this multiply button, and it should darken all the shadows. You see that, how the shadows all got dark? Now that's too strong, so I'll take the opacity and I'll pull this opacity back and stop at a point where I think it looks good. And I'm thinking like right here at 70%. Now here is the before and here's the after. Now this is something you can do. You could come to this Edit Blend If button. So this is for the layer. So click this button right here. And you see right here, this is Darks 5, where all these circles are sitting. That's a Darks 5. But I can take this top slider right here and watch. I could drag it to the right and see how it's making more areas darker. Or I could drag it into the left. So I can tweak this adjustment, which is really cool. And I think I like it right about here. So here's the before and here's the after. So once you settle on like a Darks 5 or whatever, Darks 4, Darks 5, whatever you decide upon, you can still make fine tuning adjustments here. And that's super helpful, and it's one of the benefits of using Edit Blend If. And then you can also click on this double arrow right here, and you can actually see what is getting affected there. See all that in magenta? And you can also on the combo panel click this button as well and see the same thing, which is a great feature of the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. The next thing I want to do is just lighten up my midtones a little bit. Now, right now, my Blend If panel is in the way, so I'm going to click this X. Nothing changes here. And what I want to do is get a curves adjustment layer. This is the way I like to lighten midtones. It's a subtle adjustment, curves adjustment layer. This time, I'm going to click the Edit Blend If button and go to a midtones 1. It's a very subtle midtone adjustment, midtones 1. I'm going to change to the screen blend mode. Now I can come to the combo panel right here and click on screen. And that just lightens up my midtone, but that's way too strong. So what I like to do is take the opacity the whole way off and then just start to build it up slowly and stop at a point where I think it looks right. And I think like right here at 24%. So here's before and here's after. See, just a nice little lightening up of the midtones. All right, now we have a lot of sand and rocks, and a little bit of clarity can really help bring out some nice detail here. So I think I'm going to work with the clarity action next. I'm going to go ahead and click on this clarity action. If your actions aren't open, you can click the TK button that looks like this for actions, and then I'll click on clarity, and then we're going to get a dialog box that comes up for a high pass filter. And what I want to do is I'm going to drag this to the right And I stopped here like around 50 right here and click OK. Now that's going over the entire image. Here's the before and here's the after. So what I'm going to do is get a black mask, and you can find that on the combo or the CX panel, this button right here. Click on it, and that puts a black hide all mask on here. And what I'm going to do is get a brush. It's going to be a white brush, so I'm going to click on my white brush, and I want my opacity at 30%. Right now it's at 100%. I'm going to type my 3 key. That gives me 30%. And with a decent sized brush, what I want to do is paint over my entire foreground area without ever lifting the brush. I could have made my brush a little larger here. It's going to take me a little longer, but I want to make sure I get everything in here. I don't want to leave any spaces here. I'm going to build up certain areas stronger than others, but I just want to put down a 30% base. And again, as I said, I should have got a much bigger brush because this is taking forever to paint down through here, but I don't want to lift it. But as you look, if you look right here, you can see I got everything. So right now, here is the before. And here's the after, but you see that clarity? I'm going to make that brush a little bit larger. And I'm just going to go over some of these rocks in here and just build this up a little bit more in these areas. Maybe on this sandy area right in here, just a little bit here. Now I'll make the brush smaller, and some of these rocks up in here I'll hit again. So I'm just building this up. Okay, bringing out some of these little details in here. Okay, but take your time and get the areas that you really want the detail to pop. Okay, maybe up in here a little bit more because this is closer to us. Okay, so right like that. So let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. And then if you click the double arrow on the combo or CX panel, you can see what I painted, right? Okay, so that's just all hand painted on there. And I love doing this with the clarity action. So again, let's take a look. Here is the before. And here's after, but you see how I get some really nice clarity and detail to pop. The next thing I want to do is work on some color, so I'm going to X out of this Edit Blend If. I don't really have any Edit Blend If on this layer, and I need to get back to my multi-mask panel. Now what I want to do is bring up the weaker colors, and the best way to do that is utilize this button right here. This is the Saturation Vibrance Mask button, so click on this. When you want to reduce highly saturated areas, you want to use the saturation portion over here. But when you want to bring up weaker colors, you want to use Vibrance. So here's Vibrance 1. Now it's going to be way too strong. Usually I find like a Vibrance 4 is the way to go. But here's Vibrance 2. Here's Vibrance 3. See, these are the mostly saturated areas over here. See how they're getting darker? So it's pointing out the weaker colors. Now here is Vibrance 4. And see, that really takes out the color that's sitting over on this side. So that's going to be good. I'll output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer by clicking this button right here, and it'll apply that mask right there, that Vibrance 4 mask right there. And now this is cool, so now I can take the saturation and I'm going to bump it up. So I'm going to drag the saturation slider. This is for master. I'm going to take it to the right and stop where I think it looks the best. And I think it looks the best like right here. Check this out. Here's the before and here's the after. This is a great adjustment. I was really happy when I made this adjustment, so I thought, now this is the way I want this image to look. Now I think my blues are a little too strong up here in the sky, so you can click on Master and come down to Blues. And what I did was I just eased off the blues a little bit. I just came down to like a -10. So here's the before and here is the after. And if we click our overall before after button right here, here's our original starting point. And here's where we're at now. So I think we're really moving in a great direction. All right, the next thing I want to do is just burn down some of the shadows up around these sandy areas in the water. I think it's really going to help. And so what we'll do is we're going to come back to the Blend If button right here. This creates Blend If masks. And I want to find a darker tone. So here's Darks 1, here's Darks 2. And I want to get some pretty good separation here. And now here is Darks 3. And Darks 3, see all these light areas in the sand? These are the areas I want to target and burn down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hold our Shift key down because I do not want to apply a mask here. I'm going to hold my Shift key down and click on the, You could use the left or right side of the burn tool. The left side gives you a 50% gray layer. The right side gives you a transparent layer. This time I'll use the transparent layer. Either side will work, so I'm going to click right here. And you'll notice I have blend if. You can see by this icon right here. And here's my burn layer. And now with a brush, and I get a black brush from the burn tool. And I think I'm going to go at like 30%. Now I am at 30%. You can type your 3 key if you're not. And now we can just come here and start burning like areas that we want to darken down. And the blend if is going to help us target those darker areas. So it's going to give us that protection that we want and that protection that we need. So see that? I can build up some depth and dimension in here. Okay, so I'm going to get, now if you lift your brush and paint again, you'll build up the effect. So like here, I'm going to hit once, twice, over in here. But take your time, but I love to dodge and burn. I'm not doing any dodging on here because the light areas are already good, I think, so I don't need to mess with those. But see how that builds up a little depth in there, so I can come over in here. I'm lifting the brush several times. I'm coming down in here, and then over in here. We'll get these areas here. And that's really nice. And I can come on this shadow and just build this up a little bit. Like on this water here, these shadows that are sitting in here, we can get these guys. Over here, some shadows. Okay, so take a look. Here is the before, and here is the after. Isn't that cool? But see how that just really builds this up, and it looks really cool. I can even come out here in some of these shadows in the water and hit these guys. But you get the idea, but take your time. I always say that, take your time, because I'm making a video and I got to go really quickly here. You don't want to sit here all day and watch me do this, I don't think, anyway. But what we can do here is, this is Edit Blend If, right? So I can come and click this button right here and get to Edit Blend If. And this is where I'm sitting right here. And if you click this button right here, again, you can see the areas that I painted, right? Or you could click this button as well, and you can see the areas that I painted on this transparent layer. And don't forget, you can adjust this slider. You know, I can move this to the right and see how it changes, or I can move it into the left, and you can see how it's targeting different areas. But right about here is what I want. Now, here is the before, and here is the after. Now, we don't have a lot of color in this image, but we do have some color. So let's use color luminosity. So I'm going to click on this action right here. If your actions aren't open, you can click this button right here for the TK actions. And here's color luminosity. And what I want to do is just work on reds, yellows, cyans, and blues. And so what I'll do is, I think I want to lighten up my reds a little bit, and I think like right about here. And I just want to darken up my yellows just a little wee bit. See, if I move this to the left, I can darken them, but I want to take them to like right here. Now with the blues and cyans, let me just lighten up the cyans just slightly to like right there. And then the blues, I think I'm going to darken up the blues a little bit. So I'm going to take them over to right here. So let's take a look. Here is the before, here's the after. It's a subtle adjustment, but I think it's very helpful. Before and after. I think I want to lighten up my midtones a little bit after all these adjustments, so I'm going to go back to this step right here and make this layer active. And right now my opacity is at 24%. I'm just going to pull this to the right a little bit more to like, you know, maybe right here, like around 40%. So here's the before and here's the after. Okay, so I like that. So I already worked on the midtones here, so I just went back and brought those up a little bit more. We are almost done. I think I want to just put a basic vignette around this image. Now, we have two different types of vignette. We have a basic vignette and a freehand vignette, and I've used them both, but for this image, just a basic vignette is all I really need. I'm just going to X out of this blend if right here. I'm going to click this vignette button. Now the Gaussian blur dialog box comes up, and I'm just going to accept the radius just the way it is, and I always do that and click OK. Now that gives us a vignette at a 30% opacity. Here is the before and here's the after, and I think that's good, but I think I need a little more, so I'm going to drag this opacity to the right up to like 40%. Here's the before and here's the after, but I do want to protect these clouds up here a little bit, so what I'll do is click on the Edit Blend If button, and to protect those clouds, we can choose a No Lights 1. You see how that protects them? Or let's try a No Lights 2. That protects them a little bit better. And if you click this checkbox right here, you can shut off the Blend If. We'll uncheck it. See, there it is without the No Lights 2, and here it is width. So it lets those lights come in a little bit more. Now, if you wanted to protect darks here, like no darks 1 or no darks 2, you can only use one of these buttons at a time, but you could manually adjust it. For instance, if I wanted to protect my darks, I could take this bottom slider and drag it to the right, but you see how they both drag together? But then if I start dragging it to the left, you see how I get that feathering there. So now I can protect my really darkest dark tones. Now here's my before and here's my after. So I'm protecting the darks as well as the lights through that no lights too. So again, here is the before and here is the after. And that gives me a nice little vignette. I just have one final thing to do. This distant land area back here looks a little bit too light to me, so what I'm going to do is get an object selection tool. Now I'm set up for rectangle. There's a drop down here. You could use lasso or rectangle. I'm just using lasso. I have this set up for sample all layers. As you can see, it's checked on and checked on for a hard edge. And what I'll do is just drag a marquee around this entire area right here and see if Photoshop can select it. Yeah, and it does a really good job. Now I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. Right now I have blend if opened up here, so I can click this X and click on my curves adjustment button right here. And now you can see my object selection is now a mask on that layer. I'm going to put this in a multiply blend mode and see how that area gets dark, but it gets really dark. That doesn't look good, right? But I'll take this opacity the whole way off and build it up slowly, and I think maybe right about here at 20%. Now what I can do is come up, right now I'm at properties and you can see the curve. I'm not using the curve, I'm using a blend mode of multiply. If I come and click this icon right here, I can feather that a little bit, so I can take this feather adjustment and start to drag it to the right. And I'm going to take it over to right about, I don't know, like somewhere right around 4 pixels right there. And it just feathers that edge a little bit. Now, if we click the double arrow here, you can see there's a little bit of feathering around there, which really helps that selection blend a little bit better. And then click the double arrow again, and then you get the image back. So here's the before and here's the after. And if it's too dark, you can pull back in this opacity a little bit more. And in fact, I might do that around 15% before and after. So we started out here. I'm going to use the before after button. Here's where we started out at, and here's where we end up at. And I'm really happy with this edit, and I hope you give it a try. Don't forget to download the PDF notes as well as the image. Dropbox links are in the description below this video. Well, there you have it, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed today's full edit tutorial. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon and then also click all notifications. That way, every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about that. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing!